All right. Good morning, Megan. You are here with Mary and Steve Camarata. And good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. What's on your mind today?
Yes. So we are privileged to have a brand new, just turned 6 boy with severe apraxia of speech. And it's been quite a journey so far. But lately he has really made a leap, or at least from what we can see, he's starting to say a lot more words. He's starting to be able to say words and sounds on command. And so it's just kind of been this explosion. And we have had quite a number of questions that have come up as a result. Both in terms of like whether we should kind of push him to say more, if we should sort of just let it come, and then also what to do with his frustration when he wants to say a word and we can't understand him, and he's less and less wanting to go to his talker now. He wants to be able to say it. So that's quite a jumble, but whatever you can say about that, we'd appreciate.
Right. I think a lot of parents listening to this are going to identify with what you're saying. There's a lot of families out there with children experiencing apraxia, and it does sound like Gabe has a talker. And so was he using that pretty well, or?
Yes, he has been very eager to use it. It's only been recently now is that he started to have more verbal ability that he has not all the time, but he really wants, if he can say something, he wants to say it, not use his talker.
When he is trying to say something, like is it a syllable attempt? Is it an attempt at a word or a phrase? So he's using his talker, and when he's not using his talker, what is he expressing?
He will attempt to say a word, and we just, for whatever reason, will not be able to discern what it is from context or gestures. And we will say something, we will say what we think it might be, and it's not that, and then he will get increasingly frustrated. And sometimes we will suggest to go to his talker, and sometimes he just doesn't want to. He wants to be able to say it.
Oh, man. Yeah. And sometimes, can you tell what the word is?
A lot of times we can, just based on context. Sometimes we can't.
Right. So when you get that constant, you get a vowel correct, you've got an immediate context, parents can usually tell, and sometimes we can't. So I'm going to send that over to Steve. He's got a lot of experience in this area. So Steve.
Well, you have a lot of experience too.
I know, but I'm passing it anyway.
A couple thoughts. One thing I wanted to say is that apraxia is a motor speech condition where children have a lot of difficulty pronouncing words, and it's interesting because it's inconsistent. Sometimes they can say sounds and words pretty clearly, other times they can't say it at all. And one of the key aspects of it is that it's easier for them when there's no pressure or stress. And that's really important for one of the questions you asked, which is, should we try to draw it out of him more? And the answer to that's no. We want to be patient. We want to wait. We want to be encouraging. When he says something and attempts at make your best guess, say the word back to him. And that's really what you should do. And it'll continue to come along. I'm very encouraged by this burst. I want to highlight that, he's 6 or close to 6, and you're seeing this great progress. Sometimes people are told, hey, if you don't get it all done by the time you're 3, you've lost that window of development, and your story shows that's just not true. So I'm really happy to hear that. I actually did have a question for you that comes up a lot, and your narrative actually, I think, in some ways answers the question. But many times when I'm working with families and we have to introduce a talker. So a talker is a computer or tablet device that helps talk for the child. And parents are very nervous often, and they say to me, if I do that, then will the child stop trying to talk? And so I wanted to get your reflections on that and your own journey with struggling with that question. And then, of course, he's like completely abandoning the talker the minute he can talk, so it clearly doesn't inhibit. But I did want to hear your journey on that.
Yeah, of course. I would say we had exactly those same fears. And in fact, even before he got the electronic talker, he was given some pictures by the first ever speech therapist that worked with him. And we were even nervous then, is giving him pictures not going to allow him to speak or not make him motivated to speak. And all of that, I would say, is exactly as you said. It's definitely not true. It just provides him with a bridge to get across his point so he doesn't have to be frustrated. There is a sense of relief, I can tell. I mean, just the other day, he had a time when he was trying to say a word, he couldn't get it out. And we gave him his talker, and he went right to it, and it was like a light bulb in the room. Oh, goodness, now we know exactly what you meant, and the relief was just palpable. So I no longer fear it. I see it as a tool, and a bridge, and something that I hope and God willing, he will ultimately not need in the future. I don't know if that helps at all, but that's our experience.
I couldn't answer it better. You answered that better than I could, which is from the parent perspective, and it's exactly right. And then that pivots into your other question about, gosh, what should we do when he's getting frustrated? And basically, he's going to get frustrated because he's bright little guy. He has a lot to say, and you can imagine that the speech challenge is really holding him back a bit in terms of his ability to communicate, not in terms of his development or his thinking ability. And so that is going to be frustrating. And exactly what you did in your vignette, you said, hey, we didn't understand him. We were patient. And then he went to his talker. I wouldn't force the talker on him, but I'd offer it. And I think he'll quickly learn that after 2 or 3 tries that it's going to be more efficient for him to hit the talker. But I love it. He's trying to abandon it. And hopefully, like you say, one day he'll be able to.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I wish that frustration could come out of the equation, but, any of us could imagine if we were in that position that it would be frustrating. And just from your report, he's just a young 6. He's
just on Friday.
Right. Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah.
He's starting to say words. And in my experience and in my practice with kids who have apraxia to the level at which they're using talkers and are still not being able to sort of rapidly alternate those articulators to get, words out that we can understand, 6 is earlier than I see on average for kids to try to start saying words on their own. It's usually a little bit later in my experience. You kind of somewhere usually between 6.5 and 7.5 that's starting. So I'm encouraged for you, of course. I'm just relaying, my personal experience. So it is a journey, but it sounds like this is, really going well, and it sounds like you have good people around you. So, that's just great. And just keep doing what you're doing. I wouldn't force it. I wouldn't withhold, because we know that with apraxia, the more volition and intent they concentrate behind saying that word, the more difficult it becomes for them. That's the hallmark really of apraxia, relative to, say, a severe articulation or phonological disorder. Apraxia is different in that sense. It's marked by the ability to do things when you're not even trying, that when you volitionally try to do it, it becomes extremely difficult, right?
So one time I walked into the room with a little girl who had apraxia, and she said, clear as a bell, hi, Mr. Steve. And then a little bit later, I asked her, say hi. I said, please, say hi. And she grimaced and she couldn't say it. And so that's kind of a classic example of apraxia, where you have evidence that they actually can make the sounds under certain conditions, but then, in other situations, more confrontation situations, they really can't do it and they struggle. And it actually we see this in adults who've had strokes. That's actually where it comes from. The people that first described apraxia in children were actually people who work with strokes, and they know some of the same behaviors in a very small percentage of children. And your son has he has apraxia. So I'll also say the label is given to a lot of children who really don't meet the definition. But in your situation, it sounds like he actually fits the definition of apraxia.
Right. That characteristic of not being able to do it when you do it on purpose is really the differential diagnostic feature of apraxia. It's very unique. And there's more than just oral apraxia, but right now that's what we're talking about. So I'm so glad you called in. Before we let you go, do you have any encouraging words for other families out there who might be experiencing what you're experiencing?
Yes, I would say, and this is interesting given that it was just Gabe's birthday. I recall 2 years ago when he turned 4, going to his classroom for his birthday and seeing all the other kids talk and crying literally the rest of the day because he wasn't saying a word. And I would always have this dread in every birthday if he wasn't talking by then, like it's never going to happen. And it was so sad. And since we've gotten the apraxia diagnosis and we've kind of recalibrated our expectations for when things would come, and we've sort of settled in for the fact that this is going to be a long journey. And that has given us a lot of peace and a lot of hope. And we just sort of celebrate the small victories. And so this last birthday was just so joyful. Even though, the words are still few, but they are coming. And so I would say don't have manufactured or artificial expectations, but just celebrate everything as it comes and find joy in the journey.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say
Wonderful.
another
Absolutely
word because I don't
wonderful.
think there's
Yeah.
another way to say it. So that's fabulous. Megan, thanks so much for calling in, and go enjoy Gabe and tell him happy birthday.
Wonderful. Thank you both. We appreciate you.
All righty.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you so much.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.